The space station floated like a metal giant among the stars. Prime was the largest neutral station in the known galaxy, a place where all species could meet without fear of war. Today, the station buzzed with excitement. The Galactic Hunt Council was gathering, and everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. Inside the Great Hall, hundreds of alien species filled the seats. Some had scales that shimmered under the lights. Others had fur, feathers, or skin that changed colors. In the center of the hall stood the undisputed champions of the hunt. They looked like giant insects, with bodies covered in black armor like shells. Their 6 legs clicked against the metal floor as they moved. Each had 4 arms ending in blade-sharp claws that could cut through steel. Al, the hunt master of raised his largest claw for silence. His compound eyes reflected the lights like 1,000 tiny mirrors. When he spoke, his voice came out in clicks and buzzes that the translation devices converted to words everyone could understand. For 3,000 cycles, my people have dominated the galactic hunt, Al announced. His mandibles clicked together with pride. No species has ever matched our skill. No prey has ever escaped us for long. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. The crowd cheered. Many species owed their survival to hunters who had cleared dangerous creatures from their worlds. They had earned their reputation through countless successful hunts. An elderly council member from the species stood up. His 3 eyes blinked slowly as he spoke. We are here today to witness a new species attempt the proving grounds. They call themselves humans, from a planet named Earth in the outer spiral arm. Murmurs spread through the hall. The outer spiral arm was known for primitive worlds. Nothing advanced ever came from that region of space. Humans? Al's laugh sounded like grinding metal. Show me these creatures. The large screens around the hall flickered to life. Images showed a small blue planet covered in water and green land. The next image showed the humans themselves. The aliens in the hall went silent, then burst into laughter. Humans looked weak. They had no natural armor, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. Their skin was soft and easily damaged. They stood on only 2 legs, which seemed inefficient. They had only 2 arms with 5 small fingers each. Compared to the powerful or the armored or the swift, humans looked like prey animals, not hunters. These are the ones who wish to join our community, a voice called from the crowd. More laughter followed. The council member raised his hand for quiet. According to our first contact protocols, every new species must prove their worth through the traditional hunt. The humans have accepted this challenge. What task have you chosen for them? Al asked, still amused. A standard trial. They must track and capture a razorback thresher on 4. They have 5 days to complete the task. The laughter died down. A razorback thresher was no simple prey. These creatures stood 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. They had thick hides that could deflect most weapons and razor-sharp spines covering their backs. Veteran hunters usually needed 3 days to track and capture one. Many hunters had died trying. 5 days for creatures with no claws, no armor, and no natural weapons. Al clicked his mandibles. They will fail before the 2nd day, but very well, let them try. My team will hunt alongside them. The galaxy will witness the difference between true hunters and soft prey. The council agreed. Both teams would hunt the same thresher on 4, a jungle moon known for its dense vegetation and dangerous wildlife. The team that captured the creature first would win recognition. 2 days later, transport ships arrived at 4. The team emerged first, their black shells gleaming in the moon's orange sunlight. They moved with deadly grace, their claws clicking with anticipation. They carried no tools, no weapons. Their bodies were weapons enough. Then the human ship landed. The door opened with a hiss of air, and 4 humans stepped out onto the landing platform. Jin came first. He was the team leader with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. He moved slowly, carefully, checking the environment before stepping fully outside. His team followed close behind. Was shorter than Jin, with a thin build that made him look even weaker than the others. He carried a pack filled with equipment and kept looking at the ground, at the trees, at everything with intense focus. Was the only female in the group. She had long dark hair tied back and carried a large medical kit on her back. She smiled at the aliens watching them, which made some of them uncomfortable. Why would Prey smile? Was the last to exit. He was broader than the others and carried the most equipment. Tools hung from his belt, and he had a device in his hands that beeped and flashed with lights. He was already taking readings of the environment before his feet fully touched the ground. The humans wore strange clothing that covered their soft skin. They had boots on their feet and gloves on their hands. They carried packs full of equipment that seemed heavy and cumbersome. Everything about them looked wrong for hunting. Al approached the human team, towering over them. His shadow fell across all four humans, but none of them stepped back. Jin looked up at the massive without fear. "You are the human hunters?" Al asked, his voice dripping with doubt. "We are," Jin replied calmly. "You carry much equipment for such a simple task. Do you even know how to hunt?" Jin smiled slightly. "We know enough. Humans have no claws, no armor, no speed, no strength. What makes you think you can capture a razorback thresher?" "We will find a way," Jin said. "We always do." Al clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Very well. The hunt begins at dawn. Try not to die too quickly. I want the galaxy to see how real hunters work." The team moved away toward the jungle's edge, setting up their camp with efficient movements. They needed little preparation. Their bodies were built for hunting. The human team set up their camp more slowly. They assembled tents, organized equipment, and ran tests on their devices, walked the perimeter, examining plants and soil, prepared medical supplies, calibrated instruments, and muttered to himself about atmospheric pressure and humidity levels. Jin sat quietly, studying a holographic map of the jungle. Watching aliens made bets on how quickly the humans would fail. Most gave them less than 1 day. A few generous ones gave them 2 days before injury or death claimed them. But none of them knew what humans were truly capable of. None of them understood what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. The hunt would teach them. As the orange sun set over four, both teams prepared for the morning. They sharpened their claws and rested their powerful bodies. The humans checked their equipment one more time, drank bitter dark liquid from metal containers, and talked quietly among themselves. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn something new about these strange, soft creatures from Earth. Tomorrow, everything would change. Dawn broke over four with a red and orange sky. The jungle came alive with the sounds of creatures waking, hunting, and surviving. Steam rose from the wet ground as the temperature climbed rapidly. The team was already moving. Al led his hunters into the jungle with confidence. Their thermal vision picked up heat signatures from every living thing around them. Their compound eyes saw in multiple spectrums that humans could not even imagine. Within the first hour, they had found tracks. "The thresher passed here recently," one of the hunters clicked. His claw pointed to broken branches and disturbed earth. "Less than 4 hours ago." Al examined the tracks with satisfaction. "It is moving toward the eastern valleys. We will have it cornered by midday." They moved through the jungle like shadows, despite their large size. Their 6 legs gave them perfect balance on the uneven ground. Their claws cut through vegetation as if it were nothing. They were built for this. Evolution had made them perfect hunters. Behind them, far behind, the human team was just entering the jungle. Knelt by a fallen log, running his fingers through the moss growing on its surface. He broke off a small piece and put it in a sample container, stood nearby, scanning plants with a small device. "They left 2 hours ago," said, checking his equipment. "They are already 5 kilometers ahead of us." "Let them go," Jin said quietly. He was studying the ground, walking slowly in circles. "What do you see?" Pointed to marks in the soil. "Thresher tracks, large male, probably over 3 meters tall, moving east like the said, but look here." He pointed to another set of marks. "These are older, from yesterday, going west." "Two different threshers?" asked. "Or one thresher that comes back to this area regularly," Jin said. "Mark this location. Set up one of your sensors here." Pulled a small device from his pack. It looked like a metal box with a solar panel on top. He placed it carefully next to a tree and activated it. A small green light blinked on. "What does that do?" asked. "Motion sensor," explained. "It will record when something large passes by. If the thresher has a pattern, we will find it." The team moved slowly through the jungle. To the aliens watching through drones and satellites, the humans looked hopelessly slow. They stopped every few hundred meters, would examine plants, soil, and broken branches, would set up more sensors, collected samples of local vegetation. Jin made notes on a handheld device. They did not look like hunters. They looked like scientists on a field trip. By noon, they had closed in on their target. Their thermal sensors had picked up the thresher's heat signature in a dense thicket. Al signaled his team to spread out and surround the area. "Remember," he clicked to his hunters, "we want it alive. The council requires proof of capture, not kill." They moved into position. The thresher was resting in the shade, its massive body partially hidden by thick leaves. It was even larger than expected, with spines that gleamed like metal blades. This was a mature male, battle-scarred and dangerous. Al gave the signal. They rushed forward from all sides. The thresher exploded into action. It was faster than they expected. Its head swung around and those deadly spines caught one across the chest. The hunter's armor cracked and he screamed in pain. The thresher charged through the circle, breaking past the hunters before they could close the trap. "After it," Al shouted. His pride was wounded. No prey had ever broken through a circle before. The chase went on for hours. The thresher was smart. It used the terrain to its advantage, leading them through thorny bushes and across streams filled with stinging insects. Al's team was strong and fast, but the jungle was taking its toll. The temperature was rising, even needed to rest. By the time the sun began to set, they had lost the thresher's trail. Al was furious. His wounded hunter needed treatment. They would have to make camp and start fresh in the morning. "At least the humans have already failed," one hunter clicked, trying to comfort Al. "They probably never even found the thresher's tracks." The monitoring station in orbit painted a different picture. The humans had not stopped moving. When the sun was at its highest and the temperature made even the native creatures seek shade, the humans kept walking. They drank water constantly. They ate strange bars of compressed food. They poured sweat from every pore in their skin, but they did not stop. "Why are they not resting?" an alien observer asked. "The heat should be incapacitating them." "They are adapted for persistence," another observer noted, checking his data. "There has many climate zones. They can regulate their body temperature through sweat." "But they are still moving. They have been moving for 14 hours without rest." "Impossible, they will collapse soon." But the humans did not collapse. As darkness fell over four, they pulled out devices that created artificial light. They attached these lights to their heads and kept walking. Was still tracking. The alien observers realized with shock that the humans were not following the thresher that they had chased. They were tracking a different trail, one that they had dismissed as old. "They are going the wrong way," an observer said. "Are they?" another replied. "Look at their path." On the monitors, the observers could see that the humans had been placing sensors at regular intervals throughout the day. They had marked water sources. They had cataloged every cave and hollow tree. They had not been hunting the thresher. They had been mapping its territory. Jin called for a brief stop. The team gathered in a small clearing, checked the data from his sensors. We have movement, said. The thresher passed 3 of our sensors heading north. That was 4 hours ago. Show me the pattern, Jin said. Displayed a holographic map. Small dots showed where sensors had detected the thresher. Jin studied it carefully, then pointed to a spot on the map. There, it is heading back to its main den, probably to rest after escaping the. Should we go after it now? Asked. Jin shook his head. No, it knows it is being hunted. It will be alert and dangerous. We rest for 4 hours, then we continue. 4 hours, looked tired but nodded. I can do 4 hours. The team set up a quick camp. They took turns sleeping while one person kept watch. It was not comfortable rest, but it was rest. In orbit, the observers could not believe what they were seeing. The humans had walked for 16 hours and now would rest for only 4. This made no sense. Every known species needed at least 8 hours of rest after such exertion. They will be exhausted when they wake, an observer predicted. 4 hours later, the humans woke up. They drank more water, ate more food, and started walking again. They moved a bit slower than before, but they were still moving. It was now the middle of the night. They were sleeping. Every other creature on 4 was sleeping. Only the humans kept going. Yawned as she walked. I miss coffee, she said. We all miss coffee, replied. He was adjusting his equipment as he walked, not even looking at the ground. But the tea substitute is not bad. Everything is bad compared to coffee, muttered, but he was smiling. Jin checked his map. We are close. Another 3 kilometers and we should reach the den area. When we get there, I need you to identify all the exits. Understood. By the time dawn broke on the second day, the humans had covered twice the distance they had covered the previous day. They had not stopped moving for more than those 4 hours of rest. They had walked through the entire night while their competition slept. The observers in orbit were starting to understand something frightening about humans. These creatures did not hunt like other species. They did not rely on speed or strength or natural weapons. They relied on something much more terrifying. They simply did not stop. They kept going when any reasonable creature would quit. They kept moving when their bodies should have given up. They were faster, stronger, and better equipped by nature. But the humans had something that did not. They had an ability to endure that logic. They had persistence. And persistence, the observers were learning, was a weapon all its own. The second day brought new challenges for both teams. They had rested well and were ready to reclaim their pride. Al's wounded hunter stayed behind at camp while the rest tracked the thresher with renewed determination. Their superior senses picked up the trail quickly. The creature had moved during the night, heading toward the Western Canyon system. Al clicked with satisfaction. The canyons were perfect hunting grounds for. The narrow passages would limit the thresher's movement and prevent another escape. Today we finish this, Al announced to his team. Today we show the galaxy why we are champions. They moved with deadly purpose through the jungle. Within 3 hours, they had tracked the thresher to a cave system carved deep into the canyon walls. Heat signatures confirmed the creature was inside, likely sleeping after its night of movement. We go in together, Al commanded. Circle formation. It cannot escape if we move as one. They entered the caves. Their thermal vision cut through the darkness easily. They could see the thresher deep within, its massive form curled in sleep. The creature's heat signature blazed bright red on their vision. They crept closer, claws ready. This was what they were born to do. In close quarters, their multiple limbs and blade-like claws gave them the advantage. The thresher would wake to find itself surrounded by apex predators. Al raised his claw for the final signal. The team tensed, ready to spring. The thresher's eyes snapped open. It had not been sleeping at all. It had been waiting. The beast exploded toward them with a roar that shook the cave walls. Its spines scraped against stone, sending sparks flying. They scattered as the creature charged directly at the cave entrance. "Block the exit," Al shouted, but he was too late. The Thresher's momentum was unstoppable. It crashed through two hunters, knocking them aside like toys. One hunter's claw caught the creature's hide, but the thick skin barely registered the wound. The Thresher was through the entrance and running before the could recover. After it, Al screamed in rage. But the Thresher knew these canyons. It led them on a chase through narrow passages and across loose rocks. One missed a jump and fell, injuring his leg. Another got his claw wedged in a crack and took precious minutes to free himself. By midday, they had reached a dead end. The Thresher had led them to a canyon wall and simply disappeared. Where did it go? One hunter clicked in frustration. They searched the area carefully. Finally, they found it. A tunnel barely wide enough for the Thresher to squeeze through. The cave opening was too small for the large bodies to follow. Al struck the canyon wall with his claw in fury. The sound echoed through the canyon like thunder. All their work, all their skill, and the prey had escaped again through a hole they could not follow. "We can dig it out," one hunter suggested. "That would take days," Al replied bitterly. "By then the humans would have failed and returned home. We would be admitting that we needed more time than these weak creatures had." The team stood in frustrated silence. They were the best hunters in the galaxy, and a single Thresher had outsmarted them twice. "We start over," Al finally said. "We track it from the other side of this canyon. We will not give up." While they regrouped, the human team had been working steadily. They reached the area had identified as the Thresher's main territory just as the sun reached its highest point. Jin called for a stop. The team gathered around while pulled up his sensor data. "The creature has been moving in a pattern," explained, pointing to the holographic display. "It visits three main areas. This water source here, these caves over there, and these feeding grounds to the north. It is like a circuit," observed. "It moves between them regularly." Nodded. "I found droppings at all three locations, fresh ones. It comes to each place every 2 or 3 days." Jin studied the map carefully. His eyes moved from point to point, calculating. "The chased it yesterday afternoon. It ran toward the west, correct?" "Correct," he confirmed. "So it missed its regular visit to the water source. It will be thirsty. If you were this Thresher, where would you go next?" Walked around, looking at the terrain. He pointed to a spot on the map. There is another water source in that canyon, not as good as the main one but closer to where the chased it." "How long to reach it?" 4 hours if we move fast." Jin looked at his tired team. They had been walking for almost 30 hours with only 4 hours of rest. Their faces showed exhaustion, but their eyes were still alert. "Can everyone continue?" Jin asked. Smiled despite her tiredness. "We have come this far." Nodded. "I am good. Just started walking. Let us go then." But Jin did not follow immediately. He pulled out several items from his pack and handed them to. "I need you to build something. Can you use local materials?" Examined what Jin had given him. His eyes widened with understanding. "Yes, it will take time though." "We have time, and I will scout the water source. You stay here and build. We will come back for you." The team split up. Jin and moved toward the canyon while started working with the materials and tools from his pack. They reached the water source as the afternoon light began to fade. It was a small pool fed by a trickle from the rocks above. Examined the area carefully. "The Thresher has been here before," said quietly. "See these marks? This is a regular stopping point." "But not recently?" Jin asked. "Not for several days. It is thirsty by now. It will come." Looked around the canyon. "This is a good spot for our purposes. Only 2 ways in or out. High walls. Jin, are we really doing this?" Jin nodded. "We cannot outfight it, we cannot outrun it, but we can outthink it and outwait it." They marked several locations around the pool. Began preparing something from her medical kit, mixing compounds from her samples of local plants. The mixture created a strange smell that made them all wrinkle their noses. "Will this work?" asked Unsure. "The plants you sampled have sedative properties," Jin said. "You tested them on the small creatures we caught. They all fell asleep quickly. But a thresher is much larger than those creatures, which is why you are making so much of it. We do not need to knock it out completely. We just need to slow it down enough." They worked through the evening. When darkness fell, they returned to where had been working. He had assembled something that looked like a large net made from local vines and the materials Jin had provided. "It is strong," said proudly. "I tested it, it should hold." Should asked with a smile. "Nothing is certain," replied with a shrug, "but I am confident." They carried everything back to the water source. Then began the hardest part. They set up the trap and waited. Waiting was not exciting. Waiting was not heroic, but waiting was something humans were very good at. They took turns sleeping in shifts of 2 hours each. They barely spoke, communicating in whispers when necessary. They ate food quietly and drank water carefully. The first night passed, no thresher. The morning came. They stayed hidden. They were somewhere in the distance, probably still searching. The humans remained in position. The afternoon heat made them sweat. They drank more water. They waited. The second night began. They waited. In orbit, the observers watched in confusion. "What are the humans doing?" one asked. "Nothing, they are just sitting there. For over 20 hours they have not moved. Are they injured?" "No, they are waiting for something." "Waiting, this is not hunting, this is just waiting." But that was exactly what it was. Humans had learned long ago that patience was a weapon. They had hunted animals on Earth by simply walking after them for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. They had won wars by waiting out their enemies. They had solved problems by watching and thinking instead of acting rashly. They were amazing hunters because they were fast and deadly. But they had never learned to wait like humans could wait. As the third day dawned, his eyes suddenly focused. He made a small hand signal. The others tensed. Through the morning mist, a large shape moved toward the water. The thresher had finally come. It was cautious. It approached the water slowly, its nostrils flaring to smell for danger. It looked around with intelligent eyes. This creature had survived by being smart, not just strong. But it was also thirsty, very thirsty. After 2 days of running from and hiding in caves, it needed water desperately. The thresher reached the pool and lowered its massive head to drink. That was when its trap activated. The sedative mist she had created released from hidden containers around the pool. It was nearly invisible, just a slight shimmer in the air. The thresher smelled it immediately and raised its head in alarm. But it had already breathed in the mist. The creature tried to run, but its legs were not responding correctly. The sedative was not strong enough to knock it out, but it was slowing the thresher down. The creature stumbled toward one of the canyon exits. That was when its net dropped from above. It had been suspended between the canyon walls, waiting. The weight of the net combined with the sedative's effect brought the thresher down. The creature thrashed and roared, but the net held. Slowly, the sedative took full effect. The thresher's movements became slower and slower until finally, it lay still, breathing deeply but unconscious. The 4 humans emerged from hiding. They approached carefully, making sure the creature was truly sedated. Jin checked the restraints while monitored the thresher's breathing, prepared medical supplies in case the creature had injured itself, reinforced the net with additional ties. "It is done," Jin said simply. They activated their communicator. "This is the human team. We have successfully captured the Razorback Thresher, requesting transport for the creature." In orbit, the observers sat in stunned silence. The humans had done it. In less than 3 days, they had captured a creature that had defeated the legendary twice. But more importantly, they had done it without violence, without injury to themselves or the creature, and without the natural advantages that other species possessed. They had done it by being smart, patient, and persistent. They had done it by being human. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The humans had succeeded. They had captured a razorback thresher in less than 3 days, while the legendary were still searching the canyons. Prime Station buzzed with activity as beings from 1,000 worlds discussed what had happened. In bars and meeting halls, aliens watched the recording of the capture over and over. They saw the patience, the planning, the trap executed perfectly. It was unlike any hunt they had ever witnessed. Al received the news while his team was preparing to track the thresher for the 3rd time. He stood frozen for several moments, his mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. His hunters looked at each other uncomfortably. They had never seen their master like this. "Impossible," Al finally clicked. "They are lying. Soft creatures cannot capture what we have been hunting." But the evidence was clear. Transport ships had retrieved the sedated thresher along with the human team. The creature was unharmed and would be returned to the wild after examination. The humans had not only caught it but had done so without injury to themselves or their prey. Al's rage built like a storm. For 3,000 cycles, they had been supreme. They had earned respect through strength and skill. Now these weak, soft creatures had made them look like amateurs in front of the entire galaxy. "I invoke the right of proving," Al announced loudly enough for his voice to be recorded by the monitoring drones. "I challenge the humans to a true hunt." The declaration spread across communication networks immediately. The right of proving was ancient law, rarely used. It allowed a champion to demand a direct challenge if they felt their honor had been questioned. The council could not refuse such a challenge. Within hours, both teams were summoned back to Prime. Jin and his team arrived tired but satisfied. They had proven themselves and looked forward to rest. Instead, they walked into a massive gathering. The Great Hall was even more crowded than before. Every species wanted to witness what would happen next. Al stood at the center, his massive form radiating anger and wounded pride. "Humans," he clicked, his voice carrying across the hall. "You have succeeded at a simple task, but that proves nothing. Any creature can be lucky once." Jin stepped forward calmly. His small form looked tiny compared to the massive, but he showed no fear. "What do you propose?" "A real hunt. Not a simple beast, but dangerous prey that requires true skill. The prey must be intelligent, armed, and prepared for hunters. Only then can we determine who are the superior hunters." The council members stirred uncomfortably. This went far beyond the normal proving grounds, but the ancient laws were clear. If Al invoked the right of proving, the humans had to either accept or leave the galactic community in shame. "What prey do you suggest?" Jin asked. Al's mandibles clicked with dark satisfaction. "There is a warlord named he is one of the warrior species from the Rim worlds. 5 years ago he went rogue after a court ruling he disagreed with. Since then, he has killed 17 hunting parties sent to capture him. He hides on the death world called Scorn, a volcanic wasteland where temperatures reach deadly levels. This is prey worthy of real hunters." Murmurs spread through the hall was famous. Every major hunting clan had tried to capture him. All had failed. Some had died trying. This was not a test. This was meant to be a death sentence for the humans. An elder council member stood up. "This is too dangerous for a proving ground, is not an animal. He is an intelligent being with weapons and defenses. This could start a war." "The right of proving allows me to choose the prey," Al countered. "The ancient laws are clear. The humans must accept or admit they are not worthy." All eyes turned to Jin. His team stood behind him, looking concerned but not afraid, touched his shoulder gently, was already checking his equipment, watched the crowd carefully. Jin was quiet for a long moment, then he spoke. "We accept." The hall erupted in noise. Some species cheered, others protested. The council tried to restore order. But, Jin continued loudly, making everyone quiet down, we do not accept your definition of hunting. We will capture or our way, not yours. There is only one way to hunt, Al clicked. You track, you capture or kill, that is hunting. Then you will see a different way, Jin said simply. The challenge was set. Both teams would travel to Scorn. Both would attempt to capture or, whichever team succeeded first would be declared the superior hunters. The entire galaxy would watch. 3 days later, both teams arrived on Scorn. The planet lived up to its name. Rivers of lava flowed across dark stone. The air was thick with ash and sulfur. The temperature was hot enough to kill most species within hours. Even with protective gear, it was barely survivable. Or's fortress stood on a cliff overlooking a lava lake. It was built from native stone and reinforced with scavenged metal. Sensors and weapons covered every approach. The warlord had prepared this place for sieges. Al studied the fortress with his team. We attack at dawn, 4 directions simultaneously. Our armor can withstand his weapons long enough to breach the walls. They were confident. They had overwhelming force and natural advantages, or was dangerous, but he was alone. They were 6 trained hunters with centuries of experience. The human team made camp far from the fortress. They did not scout the defenses or plan an assault. Instead, they did something strange. They started walking through the settlements around the fortress. Scorn was not entirely empty. Small villages of beings who could survive the harsh conditions dotted the landscape. They were poor, struggling, and desperate. Many had wounds or illnesses that went untreated. Began treating them. She used her medical skills to help those who were hurt or sick. She asked for nothing in return. Word spread quickly among the villages. The human healer was helping anyone who needed it. Scouted the area but not the fortress. He mapped the villages, the trade routes, the places where people gathered. He talked to locals, asking about their lives, their struggles, their history. Examined the fortress from a distance but not to plan an attack. He studied the defensive positions, the sensor arrays, the fortifications. He made notes about everything. Jin did the strangest thing of all. On the 3rd day, he walked up to the fortress gates alone and unarmed. He stood in front of the sensors where he knew he would be seen clearly. My name is Jin, he called out. I am human. I request a conversation with Or. The fortress remained silent. Watching drones captured this moment, broadcasting it across the galaxy. Everyone thought Jin had lost his mind. You did not simply walk up to a deadly warlord and ask to talk. But Jin waited. He stood there under the burning sun of Scorn, sweating in his protective gear, and waited. After 2 hours, a voice came from the fortress speakers. It was deep and rough, speaking in the common trade language. You are a hunter. You want to capture me and claim glory. I am human, Jin repeated. We do not hunt the way others hunt. I want to talk. If after talking you still want to fight, I will leave. But I think talking is better than fighting. You want me to surrender without a fight. I want to understand why you are here. I want to know your story. I want to talk, person to person, not hunter to prey. Another long silence. The galaxy watched and waited. This was insanity. This was not how hunting worked. Finally, the voice spoke again. You are unarmed. Completely unarmed. I have brought nothing but myself and a request for conversation. You are either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both, Jin admitted. But I am here. Will you talk with me? More silence. Then slowly a small door in the fortress opened. A figure appeared, massive and armored, or was, which meant he stood nearly 3 meters tall. His body was covered in thick scales that looked like stone. He carried weapons, but they were not drawn. Enter, or said, but if this is a trick, human, you will be the first to die. No trick, Jin promised, just conversation. Jin walked into the fortress. The door closed behind him. The drones could not follow. For 2 hours, no one knew what happened inside. The galaxy waited in suspense. They prepared for Jin's death. Then the door opened. Jin walked out, alive and unharmed. He nodded to Orr and walked back to his camp. They attacked the next morning as they had planned. They came from 4 directions with overwhelming force. They were met with prepared defenses, coordinated counterattacks, and weapons that had been set for exactly this kind of assault. 2 were seriously wounded within the first hour. Al himself took a blast to his armored shell that cracked it. They were forced to retreat, carrying their wounded. They had failed. Al stood outside the fortress, rage and pain mixing in his clicks. "What did you say to him?" he demanded when he saw Jin. "I asked him his story," Jin said calmly, "and I listened." 3 days later, Orr surrendered, but not to the. He surrendered to Jin and the humans. He walked out of his fortress peacefully and submitted to galactic authority. The galaxy demanded answers. What had Jin said? What trick had the humans used? Jin's answer changed everything. The Great Hall of Prime was packed beyond capacity. Beings from every corner of the galaxy had come to hear how the humans had achieved the impossible. Orr himself stood in restraints, calm and quiet, waiting to hear his fate. Al sat with his wounded team, his pride as damaged as his cracked shell. Jin stood at the center of the hall with his 3 teammates beside him. The council chamber fell silent as the lead counselor spoke. "Human Jin, you have accomplished what 17 hunting parties could not. The warlord Orr has surrendered peacefully after 5 years of evading capture. The galaxy demands to know how this was done. What trick did you use? What weapon do humans possess that we do not know about?" Jin looked around the hall, making eye contact with various species. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "We used no trick. We used no weapon. We simply did what humans have learned to do over thousands of years on our planet. We talked. We listened. We understood." Confusion rippled through the crowd. Al clicked his mandibles aggressively. "Words are not weapons. You could not have defeated a warrior like Orr with simple conversation." "We did not defeat him," Jin corrected. "We never tried to, that was the point." He gestured to Orr. "When I entered his fortress, I asked him to tell me his story. I asked why he had left galactic society. I asked what had driven him to this planet. I listened to his answers." The council leaned forward with interest. "What did he tell you?" Jin turned to face Orr. "Would you like to tell them, or should I?" Orr's voice was like grinding stone. "I will tell them, they should hear it from me." He stood despite his restraints. 20 years ago, I was a trader. I had a mate and 3 children. We lived on station. One day, there was an explosion in the cargo bay. 37 beings died." The hall was silent, listening. "The Dominion investigated. They decided my cargo had caused the explosion. They said I had transported illegal materials. I was found guilty. My mate and children were executed as accomplices under law. I was sentenced to serve the families of the victims for the rest of my life." Murmurs spread through the hall. The law was harsh but legal under their system. "But I had not transported those materials," Orr continued, his voice heavy with old pain. "My cargo manifest was altered. Someone used my shipment to hide their own illegal goods. I had evidence, but the court would not hear it. Justice is swift. By the time I could prove my innocence, my family was already dead." "So you fled," Jin said softly. "I fled. I came here to this hostile world where no one would follow easily. I built my fortress not to conquer but to survive. When hunters came, I defended myself. I never attacked anyone who did not attack me first. I have lived here for 5 years, protecting the villages around my fortress from the creatures that come from the volcanic plains. The people here know I am not a criminal. I am just a being who lost everything and wants to live." The hall erupted in noise. This was not the story of a dangerous warlord. This was a tragedy, a failure of justice. Many in the crowd looked uncomfortable. The delegation looked especially disturbed. Jin raised his hand for quiet. When I talked with Or, he showed me his evidence. Shipping records, communications, testimony from witnesses who were never called to his trial, had been treating villagers who confirmed his story, had mapped the area and found no signs of aggressive expansion, had analyzed his fortress and determined it was purely defensive. So you believed him, the counselor said. We his claims, Jin corrected. Humans learned long ago not to accept everything we are told, but we also learned not to reject everything without investigation or had proof. He had consistent testimony. He had a logical explanation for his actions. Most importantly, his behavior matched his story. A violent warlord would have killed me the moment I entered his fortress. Instead, he talked with me for 2 hours. He showed me his evidence. He treated me with respect. Al stood up angrily. This is not hunting. You did not track him, you did not capture him. You talked and he surrendered. Where is the skill in that? Jin turned to face the. You are right. This is not hunting the way you understand hunting. But humans learned something important long ago. Not every problem requires force. Not every prey needs to be chased and caught. Some problems require understanding. Some prey are not prey at all, but people with reasons for their actions. He was dangerous, Al insisted. He killed hunters. He defended himself, Jin replied. Every hunter who died attacked him first. He never pursued anyone. He never raided settlements. He lived on a hostile world and defended his home. Is that the action of a criminal or a survivor? The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. This challenge was revealing things they had not wanted to examine. How many others like or had been hunted without question? How many had stories no one had bothered to hear? Jin continued. When I entered his fortress, I made him an offer. I said I would take his evidence to the Galactic Council. I said I would request a new trial, a fair trial where his evidence could be presented properly. I said if the trial found him guilty again, I would accept that judgment. But if it found him innocent, his name would be cleared, and he could live without fear. And if we refuse this new trial, a council member asked. Then I told him humans would grant him asylum, Jin said firmly. Earth would welcome him. We would give him a home where he could live in peace. We would protect him from unjust persecution. The hall erupted in argument. Some species supported this compassionate approach. Others saw it as weakness or interference in galactic law. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the head counselor called for silence. The council will review Or's evidence. If it is as strong as the humans claim, a new trial will be granted. This is fair and just. A representative stood up, uncomfortable but honorable. If the evidence shows we were wrong, the Dominion will accept responsibility for our error. Justice must be true justice, not simply swift judgment. Or's restraints were removed. He would remain in custody but as a defendant awaiting trial, not as a hunted criminal. The council dismissed the gathering, promising updates as they reviewed the evidence. As beings filed out of the hall, Al approached Jin. The massive looked down at the small human. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Al clicked his mandibles softly. I do not understand your way of hunting, he admitted, but I can no longer deny that it works. You have captured prey that I could not catch. You have achieved what my people failed to do. We did not capture prey, Jin said gently. We helped a person. There is a difference. Is there? Al asked. To me it seems the same. You were given a task, you completed it. The method may be different, but the result is what matters. Jin smiled slightly. Perhaps you are starting to understand humans after all. Yes, we completed the task, but we did it by changing what the task meant. We did not see Or as prey to be hunted. We saw him as a person with a story to be heard. This is why you are dangerous, Al clicked. The statement could have been hostile, but there was something like respect in his voice. You do not fight the battles given to you. You change the battles entirely. You turn hunts into conversations. You turn enemies into allies. This is more frightening than any weapon." "Is that a compliment?" asked with a smile. "I do not know," Al admitted, "but it is truth." The turned to leave but stopped. "Human Jin, I have hunted for 300 cycles. I have caught 1,000 prey. I have never failed a task until I met your species. I find that I am not angry anymore. Instead, I am curious. There is much about humans I do not understand. Perhaps that is a hunt worth pursuing, understanding instead of capturing." "That is the most human thing I have heard us say," Jin replied with genuine warmth. Al made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been acknowledgement. He walked away with his team, moving slower than before, thinking about what he had learned. 3 months later, or was granted a new trial. The evidence was reviewed properly. Witnesses were called. The truth emerged. He had been innocent all along. His family had died for crimes they did not commit. The Dominion publicly apologized and offered compensation. It could not bring back his family, but it restored his honor. Or chose not to return to his old life. Instead, he accepted work with the Galactic Council as an advisor on justice reform. He worked to prevent others from suffering the way he had suffered. The villages on Scorn remembered him fondly as the protector who had helped them survive. The humans were formally accepted into the galactic community. They were not celebrated as great hunters. Instead, they were recognized as mediators, negotiators, and problem solvers. When conflicts arose that could not be solved with force, humans were called upon. Their strange ability to talk, listen, and find solutions became valued throughout the galaxy. Jin and his team returned to Earth briefly for rest. They had been gone for 4 months and missed their home world, but they knew they would return to the stars. The galaxy needed what humans could offer. One evening, the 4 of them sat together, drinking the coffee they had missed so much. They looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning that humans were not just another species. They were something different, something unexpected. "Do you think Al will ever truly understand us?" asked. "Maybe," Jin replied. "Or maybe understanding humans is like hunting humans. You think you have us figured out, and then we do something completely different that changes everything." "That is a terrifying thought," said with a laugh. "Good," said, grinning. "Let them be terrified. Let them wonder what humans will do next. It keeps them on their toes." Jin raised his coffee cup. "To being human, may we always surprise them." The others raised their cups and laughed. Above them, the stars shone bright. And somewhere among those stars, the galaxy's greatest hunters were learning to fear not teeth or claws or weapons, but something far more powerful. They were learning to fear human persistence, human creativity, human compassion, and most terrifying of all, human diplomacy. The galaxy's top hunters had not been ready for humans, but they were learning, and that learning would change everything.